welcome to the 2025 Refresh Renew Summit from Soul Heart Collaboration. I'm your hostess, Jamie Allen Bishop, and I'm here to introduce our next speaker. Yay! All right. Ryan is a life coach and founder of Embodied Mindset Coaching, dedicated to helping people move beyond the societal conditioning and into a state of flow. Drawing from acceptance and commitment therapy, embodied practices, and his own background as an occupational therapist, Ryan guides clients to release resistance, align with their values, and live authentically. His mission is to empower individuals to create lives of fulfillment, presence, and ease by reconnecting with their inner wisdom and embracing a flow state way of being. Please help me welcome Ryan Rivers. Yay, go Ryan.
Welcome. My name is Ryan Rivers. I'm a life coach and I specialize in supporting people in creating a life that's in a flow state where they are fulfilled and enjoying life, independent of external circumstances. I want to thank Jamie Allen for inviting me onto this summit to share what's worked for me and those I work with in transforming their lives. And so let's get into flow state. What exactly is a flow state? A flow state is when we are living according to what really matters to us. If you think about in sports, you often have that underdog that they come together, the team comes together for this insane comeback that said that they were just in the flow state. And the thing is, it's not like intentional. It's not like, all right, we're going to go out in the field and be in flow. There isn't this logical sequence of you do this, then you'll be in flow. In fact, flow resides outside of that structure. My son loves Legos and has all the instructions to put which piece goes where, and he creates masterpieces. But that doesn't quite capture the flow. Another way to think about it is imagine you were a scientist. You understood all the properties of a flower. You knew what frequencies created the color of it. You knew the chemicals that made the smell of it. You understood photosynthesis. You understood everything there is to know about a flower. And then I ask you, with all of this vast knowledge, to sit behind a canvas and paint the flower. And with that, you may even understand the rules of shading, the rules of art. Are you going to be able to paint the flower? Maybe. Probably not. And the flower that you create probably won't capture the essence of the flower, because that is beyond the knowable. The experience of the flower isn't scientific data. If you think about the Mona Lisa, the magic of Mona Lisa isn't because the painter knew all the rules and implied them perfectly. In fact, I remember in an English class, the teacher said, as we were reading a book that broke the rules, said you got to first know the rules so you can break them. And so there's this essence, this what it's like that resides beyond the structure of rules. And that's where the Mona Lisas come from. That's where the healing power of art comes from, is looking at that rose and experiencing it rather than just understanding these are the chemicals that make the color. And so it's this shift in our life because we're in a hyper masculine, a hyper structure society. And I experienced that in working in healthcare firsthand. Evidence-based practice, it's a very outcome-driven. Then you have the insurances determining things, the structure of the insurance, and you have state regulations, the structure. All of these different layers of structure created an environment where we were striving for liability and reimbursement, as much as we wanted to put patient first, it was really hard at times because of the demands of the structure. And so you can see that in society, that structure creates rigidity and can undermine fulfillment. But it's so normalized that it's like that we don't see it. It's like a fish swim by, so as fish is swimming by to other fish and says, "How's the water, boys?" The friend fish turns to his other and says, "What the hell is water?" You know, that pervasive structure is um, just, we don't know it. Just like a fish doesn't know they're swimming in water. And so this structures, like I talked about in healthcare, that these external organizations implied on it. So often structure comes from external from us. And that could be my boss's expectations for me to get the promotion. I knew what to do. And so I got the reward as a student. As a young kid, I was hyper. I was made to be running wild in nature, not to sit at a desk. But meeting that external expectation of me met my psychological need, that core yearning of belonging and safety, because I belonged to the class. The teacher didn't yell at me. I got good reports to my parents that I was doing well in school because I denied the part of me that wanted to move in order to conform to this external structure of the classroom. This is the conditioning that we have in our Western culture, is that we have such social rewards built into the system to incentivize us, in a way, self-abandoning, to us denying parts of ourselves to conform to this external structure. And it becomes suffocating, because then what it does is it defines fulfillment as living someone else's life rather than my life. And we even see this in leisure, you know, like leisure to actually have restorative rest is very different. A lot of the leisure is accomplishment based or avoidance. I'm escaping the unpleasant. I'm escaping stress. You go on vacation to escape life. What if you created a life that the vacation enhanced rather than escaped? And so this is just, to me, a sign that says we need to take a step back and assess the structure, assess the expectations that are put on us, and where do they come from, and do they actually honor the life that I want to be living? Because as humans, 95% of our behavior is automated, which is necessary to function. There's too much information out there, too many decisions to be made in order to not automate it. Like my breakfast, I know it's going to be oatmeal, put some fruit, some nuts. Like I don't have to think about it. I got that routine down. Similarly, you remember learning how to drive, sitting in the car with the instructor next to you at the clipboard, and you're super nervous. Okay, hands here and here. All right, foot on the brake, then the gas, check the mirror, the side mirrors. We're going through the structure, all of these things of what to do. And it's nerve-wracking. If I had to exert that much energy every time I drove, it would be exhausting. But now with experience, I've automated all those behaviors. I know to check the mirrors before changing lanes. I don't even think about putting the seatbelt on. I just put it on. And often we get from point A to point B without even recalling the drive because our mind was elsewhere. We've automated those behaviors so we could function. It's like resource allocation. They automated these things so I could attend to the conversation with my partner in the car, or whatever it may be. And so what I'm getting curious about is, as humans, if we automate 95% of our decisions and behaviors, I want that to work in my favor. Living in a society that is so structured and incentivizes satisfaction through conforming to external expectations, that means my automated behaviors are meant to please others and not myself. What if you can make that pivot to where you started automating behaviors that brought you fulfillment? That is gold. And what I'm getting at here is one of my life philosophies, that life is better than I am experiencing it. What I love about this philosophy is often we look external from us for fulfillment. When the kids are behaving, when I have a partner, when me and my partner get through this rough time, when I get the promotion, when I graduate from school, when I leave this job, or what, insert if, insert then I'll be fulfilled. Whatever you want after the if. It doesn't matter because it's external from me. That says I will be fulfilled when something is accomplished or when something outside of me shifts. Whereas this life philosophy that I have of life is more fulfilling than I'm presently experiencing it. I love that because it gives me power. Yes, sometimes, sometimes I've been in those working in healthcare, my first job, no matter what I changed inside of me, I had to leave. And the second job got to that as well. Like there are these external things. There is place for fulfillment to come from external shifts. But that perspective is ingrained in our automation because we live in a consumerist society. How profitable is it for our lack of fulfillment to be met by a product? Especially if you need to buy that product multiple times, that is a good business model. The worse I feel about myself, the more money that company makes. And so you could see there's all these incentives for us to be conditioned and trained to look outside of ourselves. But what would it be like to look internally? As an occupational therapist, I was trained in what was called environmental modifications. Put in the wheelchair ramps, the grab bars, the canes, the crutches. How can I adapt the environment to help the person do what they want to do? What I'm asking is, how can I take that perspective inward? What does an internal environmental modification look like? How can I shift the way that I relate to my thoughts and my feelings in order to create more fulfillment, or in order to increase my capacity to experience the fulfillment that is available to me? For example, my partner and I just moved to a new place, and one of the things that caught me off guard is like, it's a beautiful neighborhood to walk in. We like going for walks in the evening, and I didn't realize that was so important to me. The last place we lived, it didn't really have that. And we weren't looking for that. So this is the beauty, is when we let go of structure and expectations, we had our list of what we wanted. And if you are too tightly believed to that, that's all you get. But when you hold that lightly, these expectations, life surprises us with more like a beautiful neighborhood to walk in that wasn't even on our list. And there's so many other things about where we live that I could add that bring fulfillment, that weren't on our list. But what these other things require is me perceiving beyond my expectations. Like one of the expectations is to have all the kids on the same floor as us, just with their ages and things like that. We didn't want anyone exiled to a basement or anything like that. And we got it. And that was satisfying. Do we want to limit our satisfaction to that though? Or do we want to realize, hey, we also have this beautiful community to walk in that we hadn't planned on? So that's the beauty, as we learn to hold, as we shift from these expectations externally to internally, we hold them lightly. And we are able to enjoy more of what life has to offer us rather than dictating life to be fulfilling. You need to do this and look like this, and then I'll be okay. And that's what we do without even knowing it. And so the what I'm getting at is like this hyper masculine, this hyper structure that we live in our society of always hitting these goals, these accomplishments. And I see it in the coaching community. I've had coaches that are like very accountability driven, and like accountability has its place. But if that's all that there is, I'm confining my fulfillment to a home with the bedrooms on the same floor, rather than we also have this beautiful community to walk in, you know? And so it's about letting go of our expectations so we can be pleasantly surprised by life is what this life's philosophy is, that life is more fulfilling than I'm experiencing it. And the interesting thing is, as I've opened up to receiving more fulfillment, my capacity to contain fulfillment increases. These external things that I say fulfillment's contingent on also shifts. So it's like an indirect reward for increasing the connection to myself. So what I'm talking about is we've been conditioned, it's been normalized to seek fulfillment outside of us. And not only is it functional, but it's necessary. As kids, as humans, we have core psychological yearnings that we get to meet in order to survive. And we often are conditioned to meet those in ways that do not honor us, such as I was conditioned to meet my core yearning of belonging by sitting still at a desk. Now, as an adult, that no longer creates the life that I want. I have more options, more opportunities to meet my psychological needs in a way that will bring fulfillment. But it requires an awareness of these old patterns that aren't honoring who I am and who I want to be, releasing them and establishing new ones. And so digging deeper into this internal environmental modification, shifting the way that I relate to my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, I like to think about it as, yeah, but I'll share a story that will tie into to how we relate to ourselves emotionally. And this comes from when I worked in the nursing home. I remember knocking on the door and hearing, come in, and just the familiar smell of nursing home was there. I could hear the sounds of the residents' TV playing. And I entered the room. And this was the first time getting to know the gentleman. He'd just come to the facility, and I'm getting his plan of care set up, so his therapy established. And so I'm assessing what are his needs and how can we support him. As I enter the room, I see a prosthetic leg leaning up against the table. And I remember reading in the doctor's notes that he's here for not his first, second, third, fourth, but his fifth amputation. Diagnosed with diabetes type 2, which is a lifestyle disease. And that can be pretty much eliminated through proper exercise and diet. And I'm meeting this gentleman who is making choices that resulted in 5 amputations. And I could see them very present as I notice on the bedside table, there's 2 6-packs of soda and a box of donuts. And I look over into his wardrobe that's open, and he's got those like 24 cases of sodas, several of them in his room, and is drinking a Dr. Pepper in a 1 liter bottle. And I had a moment here. It's apparent why he's here for his fifth amputation. I'm going to meet him with judgment and criticism and blame him. Hey, stop eating all of that. But in that moment, I saw myself in him. I don't have physical amputations, but the way that I've interacted with my emotions said, those aren't safe to feel. Some of them, I'm going to exile you away. Emotional amputations. The way that my emotional nutrition was such that I had created emotional amputations. And so who am I to judge him? Because odds are he's emotionally eating. And until he goes through and processes the trauma and the emotions, he's probably going to keep getting amputations. And his life's going to be shortened. But it's a normalized way of coping. It's not drugs, it's food. Who doesn't eat, right? Who doesn't like a good soda? And so you could see how these normalized ways became very unbalanced for him, probably because he didn't have that skill set. If he was emotionally eating, he probably didn't have the skill set to deal with his emotions in a way that didn't require the support of food. And so I saw myself in him because there were emotions that I too was afraid of, that I didn't have the skill set. And so this stands out to me because it illustrates the power of our emotional nutrition. Are we eating calorie empty foods? Are we eating our fast food? Or do we have nutritious, rich, homegrown, homemade, emotional food, organic? So let's get into like, what does this emotional fast food look like? And what does it look like when I'm living in with this poor nutrition? Well, as humans, we are pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding creatures. I have this curiosity, and this is part of our survival mechanism. It's necessary. And I have this curiosity when I'm driving down the freeway. I may or may not have my son in the car or my partner. Um, I want to grab the steering wheel and go turn it really fast and see how many times the car rolls. That's a genuine curiosity. But this pleasure seeking, pain avoiding, I can conceive like that would not only hurt me, but the passengers and probably cause a pile up and hurt others. And I want to avoid that pain. So I'm going to have the pleasure of just driving. So you can see it keeps us safe. But what if it became unbalanced and now it's saying, hey, car's not even safe? Forget rolling the car. If you don't even touch the car, you don't turn it on, you're not even going to have to consider about not rolling it out of curiosity. Now I can't take my son to school. I can't go grocery shopping. I'm limited to walking, and where I'm at, it's not set up to be walkable. So it significantly undermines my capacity to live and thrive because I'm pleasure seeking, pain avoiding my car. Because my mind tells me stories, my car is not safe. So you can see these two scenarios. It's that same survival instinct. So one is keeping me safe, taking me towards the life that I want. The other is taking me away from the life that I want because it's such a narrow definition of safety. And so that's what happens when this survival instinct, pleasure seeking, pain avoiding, becomes out of balance. What that looks like in our daily life is we seek short-term relief at the cost of our long-term value. And that's emotional fast food. I enjoy a good burger, especially if I just want something convenient and easy and tasty. And so convenient emotional food is numbing, avoiding. It's that seeking relief rather than being like, whoa, there's some deep sadness here. Let's go in and feel that. And so our mind, when we're living and becoming like these emotional diabetics with emotional amputations, the good news about amputations emotionally is we actually can't amputate it. The research shows we just exile it, kind of get it out of our awareness, that get some protector parts there. But we could welcome these exiles back in. That is possible. It's like regrowing the foot that's been amputated. It's beautiful. And So let's see, where was I? Let's come back to this emotional fast food, to where we're sacrificing what we want for long term for our short term relief. And the one of the keys here is the pivot to investing in what's actually meaningful for us rather than temporary relief. It could be scrolling, it could be numbing, it could be like coming back to the hyperstructure, could like accomplishment driven. Look at this. I've accomplished this thing, whether at work, sports, whatever the context is. Now I don't have to feel the pain of not being enough. I'm getting relief and proving to myself that I'm enough, rather than having that accomplishment be a natural expression of who I am. Did you catch that? Accomplishment seeking for validation versus accomplishment. That's a natural expression of who I am. That natural expression is a flow state. A flow state is the nutritious, rich food that we long for, the emotional food. So there's one more key point that I want to illustrate here that can make it a little challenging to switch from emotional fast food to this rich, nourishing emotional food, because research shows we have 6 core yearnings. And the question is not, am I meeting them? It's how am I meeting them, with nutrition or fast food? And one of the biggest determinants of that is the reality that we hurt where we care, and we care where we hurt. Let that sit in for a moment. We hurt where we care, and we care where we hurt. Think about the most meaningful things in your life. If you're a parent, think about the joy that that comes with. Think about also the frustrations, the concerns, the worries. If you're like me, my son's a mirror to my wounds. Like, hey, I love you with this innocent, pure child bliss. You've got your own wounds that are blocking you from meeting me here. Go in there, face them so you can meet me here. They call us forward. They call us to be better versions of ourselves. And that can be very uncomfortable. And so am I going to meet that? So, and same thing with our intimate romantic partners. Have you ever had one that hasn't had some discomfort? We hurt where we care where we hurt. If I could, if I had a magic wand and I could cast a spell to eliminate all pain in your life, would you? Do you want me to cast that spell? I asked this question. I had a client who was a physician, and I asked this question to them, and they just laughed because they've seen firsthand their patients that don't have pain receptors. There's the one touching the hot stove, doing whatever. They're not aware of it. Their skin's melting. You know, the diabetics that I've worked with, they have neuropathy to where they don't have sensation in their legs. A slight cut in their foot they don't realize can get infected and lead to an amputation just because they don't feel it. Um, and so if most people, when I ask that question, do you want me to cast that spell? They say no, because pain has its function, it's its place. And as we increase our capacity for this discomfort, we increase our capacity for what we care about. So you can see emotional fast food is finding relief from discomfort, whereas emotional nutrition food is welcoming that discomfort as part of our journey, as part of the meaning. You know, I remember seeing a friend that ran one of those ultra marathons in the mountains, like 50 miles or something. I saw him the day after. He could barely walk. He was in so much pain, but there was such a deep grin on his face. You see, he wasn't seeking relief from the pain, and it brought him that meaning and satisfaction. And so as a life coach, that's what I do is I help people shift from their emotional fast food that is often related to extra conforming to other people's expectations, and to this emotionally rich food, to where we understand what we want and we rewrite what we shift from other people's expectations to our own. We rewrite that story of belonging. Instead of belonging being sitting in a desk, belonging's leading an ecstatic dance because I love movement. And it's opening up to the fears. As I stepped into that role, there was fears around movement because it didn't serve me in the past. But as we live in the present, we release the past stories and we create a rich and fulfilling life that's meaningful to us. And so, to support you on this journey, I have an offering for you. I call it the FlowState check-in. Just a free mini course that that's valued at $250 because there's two parts. There's the mini course and then there's the call with me. And so the mini course is in prep for the call with you. And it's a flow state check-in. So the first part is walking you through, giving you clarity of what actually is meaningful to me. And if you already know that, then what else is meaningful to me? How can I expand? If life is more fulfilling than I'm experiencing, how can I expand that? Even if I'm fulfilled, there's more to be experienced. But if I'm not fulfilled, there's that shift into fulfillment that can be had by understanding your personal values. So the first part of the mini course will walk you through some value clarifications. The second part's the actual check-in, where it has 4 domains in your life, and you'll do a check-in. How well am I doing at living according to these values? And often when I do this with people, this awareness is like, whoa, I'm not doing as well as I'd like. And in some areas, it's like, whoa, that's awesome. I'm doing pretty good. But this area of this awareness of like, ooh, there's some room for improvement there. That's exactly the prep I want for our call because we get to discuss that and discuss what came up. If there's any resistance around the values, what's preventing you from living more fully according to those values? How can we shift the way you're relating to your internal self, shift into this emotionally rich food that aligns with your values? And we create an action plan with some concrete actions you could take. Because as we shift into our values, what we're doing is we are starting to automate that 95% of our behavior in a way that will take us towards a rich and fulfilling life. And so thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure and an honor to present at this summit and discuss how you can tap into your own medicine to understand, let go of those expectations, create a deep, rich, fulfilling life that has more to offer you than you can even possibly conceive. As you are based in your values, and together on the call, we could create value-based goals to guide you into this new phase of your life. I'm Ryan Rivers, and thank you so much for your time. I look forward to meeting those of you who opt into the mini course and the call for me. Have a wonderful day, and may you enjoy this incredible summit that Jamie Allen has put together for all of us.